Justin.
You're not pushing it. You
I
suck at
am.
this, apparently.
Oh, that was Justin Haskins, everybody. Last night was an eventful night for the GOP presidential primary. Interesting questions were asked. Interesting answers were given. I think the race is more clearly defined now than ever because of last night. Oh, and there was also a debate on Fox featuring a few other people that also happened to be running for president. There has also been a wave of stories coming out sounding the alarm on another dreaded COVID variant. In the light of this news, are we going to see a new wave of mask mandates and other restrictions? Also, a supposed TSA whistleblower claims that we'll be soon entering another full-fledged era of COVID restrictions. How likely is this? Have we not learned anything the last go around? What are the political implications of this? We're going to be talking about this and more on episode 412 of the In the Tank podcast. Booyah! Welcome, everybody, to the In the Tank podcast. As always, I am your host, Donald Kendal, and I've got with me a full crew. I've got Jim Lakely, VP of the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing great. This is my day off. I love the listeners and the viewers of this podcast so much, and you guys too a little bit, I guess, that I'm going to be here on my day off to participate in the podcast. It is hot here in Northern Illinois. Yesterday was really hot too. Yesterday was the hottest day in 120,000 years. And I believe today is going to be the hottest day in 150,000 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but somehow my tomato plants are still alive. So they seem to enjoy the heat. So, well, go figure.
I need Chris Christie to weigh in on that one. Also joining us, I've got Justin Haskins. He is the director of the Socialism Research Center here at the Heartland Institute. Justin Haskins, what's going on?
Not much. I'm doing good. I'm recovering from last night. I played this drinking game with myself. Where every time I got annoyed by something someone said during the debate, I drank, and I'm still drunk. I haven't come down from that. Yep, haven't come down from that. So basically just like a normal day for Jim Lakely, which is, the standards that we have at the Heartland Institute are pretty low. To be totally honest with you, I think I do some of my best work drunk, as you guys are going to find out today. So
good, fantastic.
You're in store for a treat. You really are.
I think his drinking game is still going. So the next time Jim talks, you're going to see Justin taking a swig of something.
Yeah, this looks like a cup of coffee, but
it's not. No.
Irish coffee.
Yeah. Chris Talgo, editorial director here at the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
Doing good. Watched the debate last night. I know we're going to talk about it, so I think we just get right to it.
We will get to it after I do some house cleaning things, which includes encouraging all of those that are listening to the show in the audio only form. First off, why don't you leave a review for us on iTunes? Come on, just go ahead and do it. Helps out the show. And you could also join us a day earlier on Thursdays at noon Central Time, where we are live streaming the show on YouTube and Twitter and Rumble and Facebook. And you can join the conversation, throw your comments and questions in the chat. Maybe we'll show your comments on the screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. You could also help us out by, we got that super chat functionality enabled, so you could support the show that way. It's a great way to support the show and guarantee that your comment or question is addressed on air. Also, hitting that like button, sharing this content, subscribing if you haven't already, or just leaving a comment under this video all helps break through those big tech algorithms that prevent content like this from being shown to more people. Lastly, we have a benefit dinner that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. September 8th is the day. It's a Friday. And we will all be there except for Justin. And so we want to see our fans there. Come up to us, talk to us, let us know that you're there, share the love a little bit. But instead of throwing it to Jim Lakely to talk about the guests that we'll be having there, John Stossel, Jeannie Ives, all of that, we do have a little bit of a video package that's supplied to us by producer Andy that highlights some of the cooler things about each department. This video in particular is just about the Socialism Research Center. So go ahead, Andy, play your wonderful piece of art.
Thank you, Angelic and Amen, for this musical opening of the meeting.
In my opinion, this is the most important story, period. If you're talking about transforming society, this is the story. Imagine what the world would be like if the internet had been designed with ESG from the start. When you can control people without throwing them in prison by just simply silencing them, when you have artificial intelligence rigging the algorithm right from the very start, you don't need these kinds of giant crackdowns, jackboot stormtroopers. You just need the right system in place.
That is right. So the benefit dinner, as it does highlight very important people in the kind of the Liberty battle. Like I said, we have John Stossels, our featured speaker. The Liberty Prize is going to Jeannie Ives. But it also is an opportunity for here at the Heartland Institute to kind of celebrate the work that we have done as an organization over the past year. So that is just kind of a little clip of that, just showing, like I said, some of the, it's a little Justin heavy media appearances that we've had under the Socialism Research Center banner.
We need to fit some more in there.
But I do believe that there are other things like that in stock for the Environment Center and healthcare and all of the like. So if you are able, if you're willing and able, you have the means to do it, come join us in the Chicagoland area for the benefit dinners, the 39th anniversary benefit dinner here in the Chicagoland area. You can find more information. Go to heartland.org or benefit.heartland.org for more information. Jim, anything else you want to say about it? Good. All right, let's move on.
We just hope to see people there. That'd be great. You won't get to meet Justin, but apparently Justin's going to be very, very prominently featured on the screen, so it'll be just like he's there.
Yeah, deep fake my face over all of those clips, Andy. I think that'll go over well. So as I jested earlier, last night was the date of two different events relating to the Republican presidential primary. The Republican primary debate on Fox and the far more viewed Donald Trump interview on Tucker's show on Twitter. So Donald Trump, as many surely know by now, declined going to the debate and instead pre-recorded an interview with Tucker Carlson. The interview was then scheduled to release promptly at 7:55, 5 minutes before the start time of the debate, which I thought was just hilarious. The debate, on the other hand, started at 8 o'clock our time and featured not Trump, but Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, Doug Burnham, Asa Hutchinson, and Chris Christie. So, lightning round. Jim, I know you watched the debate. Did you watch the Trump interview?
I did not. I watched about 15 minutes or so of the Trump interview, and I fell asleep. So
Justin, I know you watched most of the debate. You said you didn't finish the whole thing. Did you watch the Trump interview?
No, I did not. I watched 30 seconds.
Lightning round, Chris. I know you watched the debate. I'm sure you watched it in full.
I did.
Okay, great.
I even watched some of the post-debate coverage.
Yeah,
and
I watched the post-debate.
And
you watched it again this morning, right?
I watched some of the post-debate coverage this morning on our favorite channels, MSNBC and CNN. Before
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And I watched about 20-25 minutes of the Trump interview, and I didn't really think there was much breaking news except for one small element, which I'm sure we'll discuss.
So I did the opposite. I watched the full Trump interview and I watched some bits and pieces of the debate. So I think we've got it all covered from all sides, even the MSNBC and CNN perspective. What type of other show will give you that? So
we may run out of time before we get to that. Let's not get the viewers' hopes up.
Well, Jim, you probably have the most to say about anybody. So I'm going to give you first whack at any aspect of this that you want to take about last night's events. Go for it, Jim.
All right. Well, you were on a text thread with, and Justin was too, and a couple other Heartlanders and one former Heartlander, kind of sharing our thoughts live as the debate was going on. I thought that was the worst debate in both moderation and performance that I've ever seen. By miles. Wow. It was terrible. It was terrible. This is a GOP debate, right? And what did we do? We hit the issues that Democrat voters really care about, framed from a lefty Democrat perspective every single time. Abortion, climate change. There was even a question about how our cities have devolved into these dystopian, lawless hellholes. And it was framed in a way that says, well, Trump was president during that, so, he does share some responsibility for it. That is so ridiculous. Nearly every single policy that has created that has turned our cities into these hellholes. In fact, every policy that has made this country go downhill and be a complete mess, from inflation to crime, to our kids falling behind in school, to lockdowns and economic misery, to lies about how COVID came to be and how to treat it and how it spreads, to foreign policy, to the government conspiring with big tech to censor the Americans' free speech. All of that stuff is a manifestation of radical leftist policies and philosophies implemented by Democrats. And this debate featured questions framed from that point of view. And they had stupid gotcha questions like, raise your hand if you believe in X. Like, do you believe humans are driving climate change? Raise your hand. Okay, now it's time for a lightning round. I mean, are you serious? This is a debate about somebody on that stage, or Joe Biden, or maybe Gavin Newsom, is going to be the next president of the United States. That's just a fact. And we get a question like, do you think military service should be mandatory, Governor DeSantis? What the hell kind of a question is that? And then Chris Christie is asked about UFOs. It wasn't until the closing statements, where they each got 60 seconds, where viewers got any idea, any hint into what the candidates stood for, what principles they might hold, why they're running for president, any of that stuff. The important stuff, the stuff voters actually need to know. Most people had never heard any of these people talk before. And instead, we have the moderators letting it get completely out of control after framing everything from the left. I know they can't put trapdoors underneath those lecterns, but they can have a mute button, and they can just hit the mute button. Everybody shut up. Everybody shut up. We're going to reset and start over again, and I'm going to unmute one person, and that person gets to talk, and that's it. I mean, That's what you needed to do to have anything useful come out of this, except for if you're a Democrat. Lots of useful stuff came out of that. If you're a Democrat or you're working for Team Biden was the big winner last night, because they have turned this country and the economy into a complete disaster. And it was never brought up. It was never really addressed. It was just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but what did Chris Christie have to say about UFOs? That's what's important. I want to know that. Come on.
I mean, and just one last thing. I mean, I think it's time. Look, the GOP, this is the fault of the Republican Party, the National Republican Party. They need to stop partnering with media, big legacy media organizations for these debates. That is an old model. And Fox News had to keep, we got to hurry up. We got to be done on time so we can go to Sean Hannity in the spin room at the top of the hour. Nobody cares. You could go on, Joe Rogan has mastered the art of a 3-hour conversation with one person. I think the American people would rather spend 90 minutes or 2 hours or 2.5 hours having a genuine examination and discussion about issues with people running for president. No, instead we got to hurry up because we got to go to Sean Hannity in the spin room, which is complete bullshit. Nobody cares about that stuff either. I mean, Chris watched it, but I didn't watch it. So the GOP needs to stop with this stuff by partnering even with friendly media like Fox News to run their debates. Bring in a panel of moderators that are from, think tanks and are experts on issues like the economy or climate change or education. Bring in talk radio hosts like, any talk radio, any conservative talk radio host in the country. You can pick them out at random. They will have better questions than Brett Baer and Martha McCallum had. That's what needs to be done. This is supposed to be so that Republican voters are getting information for who they might want to choose to be their nominee. That should be the goal of a Republican debate. That goal was not even approached from 30,000 feet away. This was a complete joke. And you know what? It's only going to get worse from here. That's the fun part.
Justin, you at one point in your life told me that like primary seasons of an election are like your favorite time part of the year or something like that. Have you changed your mind on that?
I did. I really did. You know, there used
take
to
a
be
drink,
period,
Justin, and defy me.
There used to be a period of time when there was this a really famous talk radio show host in the New England area, growing conservative, and growing up, I always listened to him, and he used to describe it as primary season is like Super Bowl season for people who love politics. Like it's just the best time of year if you love politics. And I really did used to feel that way. And now it is just like, it's closer to being trapped as like a POW in a Vietnamese prison camp. Like it's closer to that, I think, than it is to being like the Super Bowl. It's awful. It's torture listening to this. I mean, you've got fat Chris Christie, who his sole purpose in life is just to make people angry and hate him, it seems, and get some sort of a, I don't know, like TV deal with MSNBC when this is all done with. You got Asa Hutchinson, whose ghostly figure is just haunting the stage from beginning to end. You've got like amateurs and people just yelling at each other, and you know, whatever happened to the whole, 11th commandment thing of like, thou shalt not attack another Republican. It's like all they did was attack each other pretty much the entire debate. There was very little team sort of orient, like we have to stop Joe Biden. Like that's the most important thing. Maybe I missed that part, but I don't remember anyone saying that. I will say this. I think the biggest, most important takeaway from the debate was Fox. I actually don't think that it had anything to do with the candidates. Really, in my opinion, none of them did particularly well. There were some really awkward moments. One in particular with Ron DeSantis, where they asked everyone to raise their hands if they were going to vote for Donald Trump. I think even if he is convicted, I think that was the question. Mm-hmm. And the candidates all started raising their hands, and it very clearly appeared that Ron DeSantis was not raising his hand. And then after an awkward period of time, when he realized a lot of other people were raising their hands, he decided to also raise his hand. And Chris Christie, even more awkwardly, raised his hand right around the same time as DeSantis, and then bizarrely brought it down and then shook his hand like, no, like this, like, no, I'm not, actually, never mind. And then they asked him, somebody sort of suggested, wait a minute, are you? And he goes, oh, no, I was shaking. I wasn't, but it very, very clearly raised his hand. Yeah. So it was,
I was ordering a hamburger. I wasn't.
Yeah, it was so weird.
He saw the hot dog guy in the stands and he was trying to flag him over.
It was so bad, but I will say this. So Jim had this, we had this text thread going, and I watched the debate after everybody on the text thread. Right. Jim is texting, like live tweeting to this one tiny group of people, every thought that he has about this debate. And as he's going through complaining about the Fox debate over and over and over again, all I'm doing is reading it, just rolling my eyes. Classic Jim, like drama queen Jim, just complaining about the media, all of this stuff. Then I later in the night, I'm watching the debate, and I'm saying to myself, damn it, Jim was right. This is awful. This is so bad. The biggest takeaway by far for me was, it seems, and this comes from a guy who's done lots of Fox appearances, writes for Fox. I have people at Fox who I love, but man, the first half of that debate, it really did feel like they were trying hard, Fox, to Martha McCallum and Brett Baier, to gift the Democrat Party talking points that benefits them. I don't understand that. It doesn't really make sense to me. But the abortion questions weren't just, what's your position on abortion? It just went on and on and on. Mm-hmm. They very clearly framed it as, this is going to kill us in the election, guys. So what are we going to do about it? And
let's get you on record talking about it.
And then at one point, they kept bringing up January 6th. That came up multiple times. They asked at one point for all of the candidates to basically publicly acknowledge that Mike Pence did the right thing by not, going along with Trump's plan to have states, and it was just like, why are we hashing this out?
It turned into a deposition halfway through.
It was like, why are we talking about this? Like, This is crazy that we're obsessing over the January 6th stuff. That's what they want. And we're bringing it up on our own freaking this network. This isn't ABC News doing this debate. This isn't a general election debate where you would expect that question. This is supposed to help Republican primary voters. They don't want to talk about Mike Pence and January 6th and national abortion bans. And it was like, this is so bad. It really was. It was egregious, intentionally so. It seemed almost.
And just to clarify for anyone that's confused, he's meaning January 6th, 2021. We've had a few since
not
Chris,
2023. Correct.
Yes. Chris, pretty hard opinions about this from Jim and Justin. Do you concur, or do you have a different take on it?
No, I agree. The opening segment was all about the economy, and basically what we knew was going to happen happened. They all bashed Bidenomics, and they put forward their talking points about how to get the economy going. And then this second segment, they go into abortion, and I was like, wait, this is kind of strange, because they did frame it in a very in a way that was not going to be helpful for every single Republican candidate on that stage. And then they spent 15, 20, 25 minutes, rehashing January 6th and the 2020 election. So it doesn't seem like there was much in terms of a robust policy discussion. I was waiting to hear about, their plans for immigration, their plans for the border crisis, their plans for education, and a whole bunch of other things. And those got very, very, short segments. And I just say overall, I was disappointed. It seemed like Jack Smith was, taking Brett Baer's position and asking questions that were much more about, things that these voters don't care at all about. This is supposed to be a time in which Republican primary voters in particular can get a really good view of what these people would do if they were to be elected president. And we just did not get that. And, I think Justin's right. Fox News, I am a loyal, watcher of it. However, I'd say since Tucker Carlson got let go, they've definitely gone in a different direction. They've become much more establishment. Some of the questions were just shocking, especially the climate change one. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed. It was not what I was expecting. It was not what, past debates have been. And it seemed like it was much more about entertainment and much more about, almost helping the Democrats with talking points for the 2024 general election with, putting these Republicans on record as saying things that are probably going to come back to bite them in a general election.
Yeah, so I didn't watch. I watched parts of the debate. When it came to 7:55, I tuned into the Trump interview, and it was pretty interesting. It was kind of Trump being Trump. I don't think there was anything to write home about. He fielded some interesting questions, like why didn't he go to the debate? Whether or not he thinks Epstein killed himself, whether or not he thinks the left is going to come and kill him. About elections being rigged and stolen. He did some foreign policy stuff as it related to China, Russia, and Ukraine. There was a heavy focus in the second half of it about Biden and the likelihood of running against Biden. And Trump had time to talk, right? He didn't have 45 seconds before he was cut off by Asa Hutchinson trying to score some points or something like that. So I think that it was very clearly a good move for Trump to do this and kind of avoid it. But at the same time, to me, it kind of made the debate pointless to watch. When I was so I watched that first, and then I was going to tune into the debate and watch some clips and all of that. And I just kept having this feeling that I was watching a preseason football game where the starters weren't there. And I'm just oh, is that guy fourth string receiver or something? Maybe he'll play a game or something. I don't know. Well, it made so all of this that you're talking about, their positions on this and whether or not Pence scored some points on whoever, or Chris Christie took a knock at Vivek, or someone in the comments I saw, Vivek had a really good night. That's great. But we're talking about who's going to win at becoming a distant second to Trump. Because that's what it seems like to me. This is clearly Trump's game to win. And I wasn't saying that several months ago after the primaries, but Trump has clearly solidified his support from his base with this string of indictments and all of that. I looked at 538. Is that what it's called? 538's poll aggregator, and it has Trump sitting nicely at 52.1%, holding a 37-point lead over 15% DeSantis and a 40-plus point lead over the supposedly soaring 9.7% Ramaswamy. So it just seems like what is all this political theater even like there for? You know, like I don't even know what the point of the debate is. Trump is running away with it. It's like
Danny,
over.
One of the things was the audience seemed like they were very much pro-Trump because they were booing a lot of the uniparty, things coming out of the mouths of Haley and Christie and Asa Hutchinson. And when people like Vivek and Ron DeSantis did stand up and preach some of the Trump policies, the audience, exploded in applause. So it seems like the audience there was very pro-Trump, and that, these the 8 candidates, one of them had to make a, just a humongous, home run swing, and they just didn't. Nobody did.
Right. Justin or Jim, final thoughts on this? I want to get to our other topics at hand here.
It does seem like this is over and that there really is no chance of anyone beating Trump. And it does make you wonder why there's like 15 other Republicans in the race. I will say that I will, point this out. If the goal is to be what I think was maybe the most bizarre thing that you've ever seen in a debate happened unsuspectingly. And that is that you've got all these people on the stage. They supposedly want to be the candidate, but the person who's in first place, who isn't on the stage, which is rare in and of itself in a debate, who's up 35, 40 points, 45 points, depends on the poll that you look at, really didn't get criticized all that much, except from a couple of people who have no chance of actually winning. And it makes you wonder what they're thinking that they're doing. Like, does Nikki Haley think she's going to win the primary without attacking Trump and being down by 50 points? Because that doesn't seem likely to happen. And so it really does make me think that most of the people on the stage, other than Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson, that just about everybody else on the stage is there because they're hoping to get something
position
out of it, like either a cabinet position or maybe the VP or so. To your point, I think they are all playing for second place. Like, I think that is actually what's going on here.
Vivek Ramaswamy's middle name is Prescott, so VP Ramaswamy just fits really nicely. I just made that up. That's fake news. Gentlemen, was COVID ever brought up during the debate at all?
No.
No, that's interesting.
Not one mention.
DeSantis said something about how he didn't lock us.
Lockdowns.
Yeah. And so, and he wouldn't let that happen again as president. And, he rightly criticized. I think there was, I guess, a gentle criticism of Trump for basically handing over the entire society to Deborah Birx and Anthony Fauci, and whatever they said goes. I mean, that's a very valid criticism. And in fact, it would have been a wonderful question to directly ask these guys how they would have handled it when COVID comes back or lockdowns. There should have been a really long discussion about that during the debate. Nah, who cares?
No,
let's ask about the UFOs.
Or climate change. The thing that really annoyed me about that climate change question, by the way, I know we got to wrap it up, but they didn't just ask the climate change question. They went to a video of a kid asking it on behalf of all kids in the world, apparently. Like, this is what my generation cares about. We care about climate change. What are you guys going to do about CO2 emissions or whatever it was? As if this is how this all works. It was just so annoying that it was clearly a prop. They used this kid as a prop to ask this question about climate change, which the average Republican voter does not care about at all, but whatever.
Yeah, well, the other climate change question that I thought kind of came out of left field, especially for Fox News, was when this happened.
How dare you?
I think she was the third person on the up there with Martha McCallum.
Like,
I think she was actually using Martha McCallum as her hand puppet.
DeSantis, how dare you? All right. So yeah, debate. I don't know. I mean, there was a comment in the comment section over here. I forget by who. It already passed me, but it was a gentleman saying, "Well, the Trump is getting a lot of points based on name recognition alone," something along these lines. And last night was the first time that people kind of saw alternative choices.
Oh my God.
Fine enough theory. But that would have to be reflected in the polls in the coming couple of days. You know, if all of a sudden Trump drops by like 10 points or something and somebody else gets some other 10-point boost, then I'll believe that theory. But until then, I'm not buying it.
Well, that was about the only thing I actually heard him say during the Tucker interview before I fell asleep. Now, granted, I didn't. I was tired. It was late, but
passed out.
He said, "Why would I go to the debate? I'm up 50, 60%. One poll has me up 70%. Come on, there's no poll in the world. I don't think Kim Jong-un had polls having him up 70%. In North Korea, I doubt Donald Trump is up by 70% in any polls. But this is such a bizarre thing we're going through here. The presidential campaign season is now officially underway, and the leader among the Republicans is not interested in going to any debates. This is so weird. I mean, we have a primary vote, in 5 months? There's going to be probably a couple more debates until then, and Trump is literally not planning on participating.
Yeah, but Jim, not only that, but he's facing 4 indictments, and he's going to be, he's
going to jail.
Well,
he's not a debate
at the very least, though. But guys, he's going to be stuck in courtrooms for the next several months. Is he going to have the ability to actually go out and campaign? I don't think so.
No, his campaign his entire campaign is going to be a picture of him in handcuffs, getting arraigned. Like that's
being
the
shown
campaign.
by the left. Being shown by the left,
right,
and being
and
shown
the
by
right.
him.
Yeah.
How crazy and unprecedented this is, because we're now in a place and time where the leading Republican nominee not only is probably going to skip the debates, but he's also not going to be able to campaign. And this is like, wow. Like, how is this going to play out? And not to mention that the Democratic nominee, for all we know, could drop out, in the next couple of months too.
Well, I thought you were going to say drop something else.
This could be the first campaign in history where the sitting president of the United States doesn't campaign because he's just physically not capable. He's just like locked in his own basement because he's too afraid to walk outside. And the opponent can't run because he's in prison. Right. So there's not going to be anybody running anywhere. No one's going to be campaigning. Everyone's just going to be at home.
Last thing I want to say about all
this is America. This is the United States of America, greatest democracy on the world.
So depressing.
If Trump is in prison, I will never more enthusiastically vote for somebody.
I know.
It's highly unlikely he would actually be in prison at that point. But I think he will just be so distracted with these legal, entanglements that it's going to make it very, very difficult for him to actually go out and campaign and do his rallies and, really make a real big campaign launch.
Yeah, we'd have to. It's really important that people keep in mind, they understand that if regardless of what happens if Trump gets convicted of any of these things, but especially the charges that are related to the overturning election stuff and all of that, that is going to go through so many additional levels of appeals and all this other stuff. Eventually, the Supreme Court will surely have to be involved in that, and that will be some big thing. And then and then on top of that, there's going to be this legal question hanging out there of, well, what if Trump, if this conviction stands, well, then can he even run because he's convicted of overturning the election, and that of trying to overturn the election, and that's like there's a clause in the Constitution that says that you can't hold public office if you've tried to, if you've committed treason against the United States and all this other stuff, and does that qualify? And then that'll be hanging out in the air. Like, this thing is never going to end. This is going to be like the worst election season ever.
We'll be here to cover it. There is one comment from LS says, "I didn't know you guys were all alcoholics." No, we're just joking. Chris doesn't drink. I don't drink. Justin barely actually drinks. Jim, no comment. Let's move on.
Jim drinks enough for all 4 of us. So,
Johnny, just one last statement on the debate. I think that the craziness of this debate is just a preview of what's to come this campaign season. I think this is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen with, with the legal stuff, with, Biden and his, age. And just like, I think this is going to be unprecedented. I think that the vote itself is probably going to be, testy.
Don't
and
say it, Chris.
I
Don't
know.
say
Well,
it.
yeah. I mean, I'll bite my tongue there. But no, I really do think that this is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah, you know how like sometimes channels, Fox or CNN will try to like give like a label, like America Decides or something like that, like election 2020, America Decides, or some type of like slogan attached to it. This year's should seriously just be called like unprecedented because you are absolutely right. It really is.
Unfortunately, their tagline, their slogan was democracy. And last time I checked, America is not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Big difference there.
Terrible choice, whoever said that. All right, let's get to our main topic. We're already more than halfway through, and we have a special segment at the end of the episode that we will get to. We're not cutting the episode short, so we will get to. We might be going long here. There has been a slew of stories regarding COVID popping up recently. Apparently, there is a new variant that scientists are on high alert about. This variant is named BA2.86. Remember when variants had cool names like Delta and Omicron? Like, whatever happened to that? Yeah, no, it's
because we were going to get to Z. We were going to get to XIZ, and they didn't want to call it that because that's the name of the leader of China. So that's when we started going to these other names. Can't have that.
So the new variant has been confirmed in a handful of countries and has been designated by the World Health Organization as a, quote, variant under monitoring. The CDC warns that this new variant may be more capable than older variants in causing infection in people that have already had COVID-19 or those that have been vaccinated. So even if you have been double vaxxed and triple boosted, you may be susceptible to this new variant, Justin. It's not.
I already got it, I think.
Yeah, probably. It's not known if the new variant may cause more severe illness compared to previous variants, like the ones that were confused for like hay fever or a bad cold. But it could be. And isn't that the most important thing? The could, right? But upticks in cases, case numbers in certain areas have spurred already a handful of places like Rutgers University, Georgetown University, Morris Brown College, and even Lionsgate Studios to reinstitute mask mandates and in some cases even vaccine mandates. So, Chris, you wrote an op-ed on the return of mask mandates. I'm not sure if it's published yet, so maybe people are getting a sneak peek at this. What's going on here?
Well, like you said, in the past couple of weeks, we are seeing the return of mask mandates. A bunch of colleges, a bunch of businesses, including Lionsgate, some hospitals in upstate New York have also brought back mask mandates. Colleges are also doubling down on the vaccine mandate, even though we know for a fact that the vaccines don't prevent transmission or a robust defense of the virus. But regardless of that, the World Health Organization, the United Nations are hyping some of these variants, Iris, E5, the one you just said, B, whatever. And interestingly, if you go and just like Google like COVID-19 news or anything like that, because I did that a couple times yesterday, a lot of stories are coming up and saying the masks worked, the lockdowns worked, and it's all over the place. So it makes me wonder if they're using that as a like a way to say, hey, wait a second, we need to do it again because it worked the last time. And remember, there was a whole bunch of data that came out that the masks did not work. Even the New York Times and a lot of the mainstream media outlets finally admitted that. And now they're just doing a total reverse course. And you can look it up yourself. Just Google COVID-19 mask mandates, lockdowns and everything. And a lot of scientific journals and, scientific based organizations are coming out and saying, like one of the words was, the lockdowns unequivocally saved lives and just like all this kind of, stuff. So it makes me wonder, gee, are we on the precipice of another COVID, pandemic? And are they using this as a tool because we've got an election, about a month or about a year from now? And are they going to try to do this to, keep people from voting in person, doing the old mail-in ballots, and keeping Joe Biden hunkered in his basement so that he doesn't have to really go on the campaign trail and interact with voters?
Yeah, Justin, I mean, you had COVID last week. In fact, you missed the episode because of that. Don't you? I mean, do you just blame yourself because you weren't masking up? Like, do you have some guilt in there for getting COVID because, you weren't social distancing properly? What's your take on all this?
Yeah, no, I do. It's all my fault. I've been vaccinated so many times at this point that, and yet of all the people I know, somehow I feel like I've gotten COVID more than everyone. I mean, I don't know what that means. It's almost as though there's an inverse relationship between being vaccinated and getting the illness. I'm not a scientist, obviously. I'm not trying to make any sort of larger picture points or anything. All I know is that I've injected myself many times with COVID vaccines, and it doesn't seem to be working very well for me. So, or anyone in my family for that matter. So that's great. I will say this. I know that there's this thing on the right. Chris just suggested this. I know Jim feels this way, and soon we're going to hear Jim rant all about this, I'm sure. So I will just skip right ahead to the part where I say Jim is wrong. I don't believe that this is all part of some sort of conspiracy to try to win the election. And my main and I understand why conservatives feel that way, because they think, okay, like last time we had COVID and then all the election rules changed, and the election rules definitely helped the Democrats. And so it makes, and we haven't heard anything about this for the past like 2 years. Now, all of a sudden it's right before the election, and we're hearing all this stuff about masks and maybe lockdowns and other stuff. And surely they'll use this to change the election laws. I understand the argument, but as far as I can tell, most of the election laws are still the crappy election laws that they put into place when the last pandemic happened. So as far as I can tell, that can't be the motivating factor, because they already have all those rules in place. So, for example, where I live, it's almost impossible to vote in person. Like, the way they have it set up, you really can't even do that. That's the rule now, even without the mask mandates and everything else. In order to vote in person where I live, you have to go to, this is not made up, this is real. I couldn't believe this actually when I found out about it. You actually have to go to the county office and vote at the county elections office. That's the only place in the county. Every county has one place where you can vote in person. Everyone else votes with a absentee ballot, basically, or a mail-in ballot that you can drop off in a box that they leave on the side of the road, just all over the place. They literally have my local box that I vote. My voting place is at a gas station down the street from me. That's literally where I vote. It's not made up.
Yeah, it's special for Justin. They just have him throw his ballot in the garbage can next to the door.
Probably. And it's like not even a well lit gas station. He's
got to go in the alley on the back.
It's next to it's not even in front of the gas station. It's on the side of the gas station next to the post office box, which looks exactly the same. So it would be extremely easy to accidentally slip your letter into the mail-in ballot slot, or your ballot into the post office box. There's no security of any kind, no cameras, no nothing. This is the true story of how I vote now. It is absolutely absurd. Yeah.
Justin skips the middleman of the Democrat operative throwing his ballot away and just throws it away himself. Saves time and money.
Last time he either voted or he resubscribed to some magazine subscription. He's not sure.
I'm not sure what I'm doing. It's like, it's the most absurd system already. And so my whole point is, in many states across the country, some version of this, maybe not as bad as this, but some version of this is still in place. So I don't think we need some sort of COVID conspiracy to change the rules. The rules are still garbage almost everywhere. Yeah, so that's why I don't buy that theory. I think,
Jim, I put on the thumbnail, COVID 2023, the election variant. Somebody in the chat there referred to it as the get Biden reelected variant. I've heard other variations of this joke. And we heard what Chris said. Obviously, Justin disagrees. What's your take on all of this?
Well, I think there's no question that the absolute and in some states illegally changing election rules to basically make it as a model for the way Democrats get out the vote for years anyway, while Republicans never had that kind of infrastructure in place. It worked to get Biden elected, and you keep doing something that works until it doesn't. So let's just set up all the conditions to make that happen this time too, just to be sure. And if Biden is not capable of actually running for president anymore, I mean, I just read a story today that his campaign staff is a very skeleton crew. He's got like a handful of people in an office somewhere near his 2 homes in Delaware. He's got no, as far as this story said, he's got nobody on the ground in Iowa. He's got nobody out in the States. It doesn't, and he doesn't really have a fundraising team to speak of. So, I think it was Jason Chaffetz, who former congressman who's now with Fox News. I think he wrote a piece about this. And so, if you were to look at this objectively from the outside, it sure doesn't look like Joe Biden's actually interested in running for president again. Or they think they can kind of make sure that the system works in their favor and they don't have to really worry about it so much. But, yes, we call this the election variant. And I think that's part of it. I think, if something succeeded, you want to do it again until it doesn't work anymore. Plus, you have the media on your side, and then you have all those election fortification teams out there in big tech and other places that we'll hear about after the election, of course, spending lots of money that they shouldn't be spending after the election. Of course, we may learn about it. But just to get back to this whole COVID thing, I mean, people here in the comments are talking about, I will not comply. They're not locking us down. I'm not putting a mask on. And again, Don, I've probably brought this up a dozen times on this podcast whenever we talk about this topic, is that in the beginning of the pandemic, in March of 2020, I truly, and I think Justin shared my view on this, truly believe that the American people are not going to put up with this. When they said 2 weeks to stop the spread, we were going to hold them to that. When they said, okay, we just need a couple more weeks, or there's just a little distancing, it's just this and just that and just this other thing. And don't you want to keep people safe and all of that? I thought there's no way that the American people are going to put up with this. And they put up with it for 2 years. And why is this happening now? Why is it happening again? Not just because of the election, but the idea of floating out there for vaccine mandates and for mask mandates and for possible lockdowns and for social distancing and all this stuff. This is happening because nobody was held accountable for any of this stuff that didn't work last time and that stole our freedom last time. All the lies, all the lockdowns, the medical clearance to open the schools, not by science, but by what the teachers unions might tell you. When they say it's okay to open the schools, then we'll open the schools. Closing down businesses, ruining people's lives forever, mandating the vaccines, not letting, say, for instance, Novak Djokovic come into the country to compete in the tennis US Open because he doesn't have the vaccine. Throwing out centuries of science showing that previous infection offers actual protection against getting that disease again. They said, no, that doesn't count anymore. Everybody has to get the vaccine. Nobody was held accountable for any of this, for any of these lies, for telling us that it was a naturally occurring virus, when, of course, now we know that it is extremely unlikely that is the case, and that all evidence points to something manufactured by humans in a lab. Nobody has been held accountable for any of this stuff, any of the lies, any of the destruction of our liberties and freedoms. And so again, unless you punish bad behavior, you're going to get more of it. And nobody who did this to us in our country they were not only not punished, they were rewarded, and they continue to be rewarded. That's why this is happening again.
I have a question. Do you guys think that it is? Do you guys think that most people, most voters, or even most Americans would be happy to have like masks come back and lockdowns and all of that?
Show of hands. Justin wants a show of hands.
Yes or no?
What's Jim doing?
Yeah, what's Jim doing? Yeah, I mean, do you?
No, of course not.
Well, so then why would they want to do that as part of some sort of pre-election conspiracy? Because doesn't that reflect poorly on them? Wouldn't that make them less appealing, in the election?
We got Jim.
I agree. I don't think that's what people want.
we got Jim and Chris on one side. We got Justin kind of on the other side of this little thing going on. And I can make a case for both of them because, like, at one side, like, I could see that, they just need 51% of the voters to see, like, oh man, COVID's happening again. Like, we have to take precautions. And the side with the R in front of their name, like, clearly don't take this seriously enough or whatever. And if the people with the D in front of their name think that that is a way to sway 51% of the voters, then I could see them kind of upping this variant as being something that we have to be concerned about. But on the other side of things, and Justin pointed this out when we talked, I think yesterday about this, that like Biden, one of the things that he celebrated was like the end of COVID. The pandemic is over and all of that. So for this to be like a thing and mask mandates are coming back and all of this stuff, it's like, okay, well now that celebration that you made in the end zone, has to be taken back. Like now it kind of looks like a failure on your part. So I can kind of see it both ways. I am curious of those in the comment section of what do you think about this. But I want to bring Chris into it a little bit more with this other kind of story that kind of ties into all of this. And we don't make a habit out of reporting on Alex Jones stories, but this one is seemingly getting a bit more attention than most. And also conspiracies nowadays don't have a long shelf life anymore, meaning that they become reality a little bit too quickly here. But Alex Jones claims that he was contacted by a high-level TSA official claiming that they took part in a meeting where TSA managers were informed that new mask requirements would be instituted for pilots, flight staff, and passengers. Alex Jones claims that he confirmed the information with Border Patrol agent who said similar measures were being planned for Border Patrol agents. So obviously you could take this with a big dose of salt depending on how much you trust Alex Jones. But in tandem with all the stories that we're talking about and this flood of stories kind of advocating for a return of mask mandates and all of that, is it really that crazy? What do you think, Chris?
Well, first of all, Senator Mike Lee tweeted the exact same story and got just blasted by the media for doing so. So I don't think this is an exclusive InfoWars source, because Mike Lee, who's a sitting U.S. senator, said the same exact thing. I see where Justin's coming from, and I understand maybe this is a trial balloon, like who knows. But I do think that they are willing to take the flack that they're going to get, because they're just going to say, but wait a second, this is a virus. This is not our problem. This is just going to be with us forever. Scott Gottlieb, was on one of the Sunday shows on ABC the last Sunday, and he's a, bigwig over at Pfizer. And he was talking that every single year we're going to have a bunch of variants, and we're just going to have to take our boosters, and we're just going to have to get used to this. The administration just threw another $1.4 billion in funding for future boosters. So I think that it's misguided and naive to think that COVID is over. I think COVID's going to be here literally forever, and we just have to stand our ground and say, no, we're just not going to do this again. I agree with Justin and Jim. I remember in the early days of March 2020, I mean, we didn't really know all that much. People were taking the precautions. They were doing it because, hey, this is a novel virus. We don't know what's going on, But after a couple of weeks, we basically knew the facts. We knew that this didn't harm children, yet schools obviously were shut down for years on end. We knew that this mostly impacted older adults and people with comorbidities. However, we shut down all the gyms. We said you can't go exercise outdoors. So I think that from the beginning, the deep state wanted to make this as bad as possible, because they knew that this was a golden opportunity to throw Trump out of office. And I mean, if you really want to go full, conspiracy theory here, they unleashed it. I don't know about that, but it's possible. And I think that now the fact that Joe Biden is doing really bad on in polls, him versus Trump, him versus DeSantis, and just him in general. I mean, 33% of the people approve of his handling of the economy. So I think that they're getting a little desperate, and I think that desperate times they're going to resort to desperate measures. And I don't know for sure, but I think that they are floating the COVID trial balloon out there because they think that it's a way to ensure that they will win the 2024 election and get get control of Congress. And, I think that a second Biden term, I know I'm kind of going far afield here. I think a second Biden term, all bets are off the table, and climate emergency and everything would happen. And I know, that this is not, the question, Donnie, yes, but that is the reason why we cannot have Joe Biden or his successor run for, win in 2024.
Chris Talgo campaigning to be the stand-in for Alex Jones when he has a sick day over here. Jim, final words on this topic. I do have one more thing that I want to get to after this. The first episode, first segment of Davos Watch will be happening after Jim has his last words on this topic.
I'll just say briefly that I really hope, I know a lot of the fans of this show and are here every week in the chat, and we so much appreciate you guys. A lot of statements in all caps. I will not comply. I hope I'm sure you mean it, and I do not want to comply either. I am going to do if they're really going to institute the life sucking and vitality sucking stuff like social distancing and masking everywhere and taking your temperature with a laser trigger thing everywhere you go. I'm just not going to participate in that stuff, and I'm just going to bite the bullet, and I'll figure out a way around it. If my health club requires that I wear masks to enter the club, I'm going to quit my membership. It's just going to come to that. This time it's not. After all this time, I think we can figure out ways and know how important it is to make a stand and not comply. But you have to understand that it's going to require sacrifice of things that are really important to you. And it's just a matter of what's more important to you, your freedom and the freedom of your fellow Americans, or belonging to your health club, or, going out to that particular grocery store, or going to a concert, or even flying to see relatives. I'm going to make decisions that are going to be difficult if it comes to that, because I think it's that important.
I'm actually looking forward to the lockdowns, and I hope they happen, because then I don't have to go out and do all these stupid things that my wife makes me do, and I get to stay at home and watch TV, which is really what I want badly.
Justin.
And so I'm rooting for lockdowns. I'm rooting for mask mandates. I'm rooting for staying at home. Frankly,
it is so obvious your wife does not listen to this podcast.
just by coincidence,
obvious.
Justin's also going to be going to Europe soon. That has nothing to do with.
That's true. I am going to Europe. I'm going to Europe in the hopes of learning how to live under lockdowns. It's like a training program for me. I'm getting ready. I'm going to come back home.
No air conditioning. Get used to public transportation and all that stuff. Yeah, it's a training course for him.
Wow.
All right, we're gonna do Davos Watch here. This is the first episode, but we have a little bumper graphic made for this. So why don't we go ahead and start the segment off with that?
Are we gonna play it, or is it just?
No, I'm just gonna look at it. Just gonna look at it for a while.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, it looks nice.
What happened there?
So much preparation for that. Andy, is that gonna? Can we fix that, or should I just go on without it?
Oh, I made that special.
I know it's so good, and I want to use it as a standalone clip. But so yeah, we're just gonna sit here and make some more jokes about going to Europe, Justin. Andy fixes that in the background.
I mean, it is going to be interesting going to Europe. I do really want to go to Davos one year.
There you go.
Like, can we somehow figure out how to do that?
There was a period of time where they were floating the idea, the Heartland folks, the upper brass of Heartland was floating the idea of sending Justin to Switzerland.
There it is. Isn't that great?
There you go. Davos Watch. Welcome to the first episode of Davos Watch, where we keep an eye on the global elites from Davos to the UN and all the other advocates of global fascism and totalitarian technocracy. This week, our story comes to my attention from The Federalist. It's an article titled, "These 14 American cities have a target of banning meat, dairy, and private vehicles by 2030. The article is new, but it talks about a report from a few years ago produced by the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, or C40, titled "The Future of Urban Consumption in a 1.5 degrees Celsius World." Like I mentioned, the report is a few years old, but it is getting renewed attention, and deservedly so, considering how crazy the report is. So C40 is one of these globalist advocacy groups. They focus on building a global network of major cities to combat climate change through advocating policy, facilitating access to finance, and other things like that. Michael Bloomberg serves as the president of the C40 board, and funders of the organization include American Express, FedEx, Google, and Tides Foundation, Open Society Foundations, Rockefeller Philanthropy. Partners who also supply financial funding to this organization include the Clinton Foundation, the United Nations Environmental Program, and the World Bank. Their work is frequently cited in the World Economic Forum publications. So they run with the best of them when it comes to being these global groups out there. So C40 has a network of cities approaching 100 globally. These are all signed on by the mayors of these cities. These cities include Paris, Rome, Lisbon, London, Amsterdam, Stockholm, Tel Aviv, Tokyo, Beijing, Hong Kong. In America, they include Austin, Texas, Boston, Chicago, Houston, LA, Miami, New Orleans, New York City, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, and Washington, D.C. Also, C40 doesn't just let any city into their club. They have standards. And these standards, as it stands through 2024, include various promises to incorporate climate action goals and plans into the city's most influential decision-making processes and use their position of mayor to show global climate leadership and inspire others to take action. And if you fail to meet these standards, you're thrown out of the club. Anyway, the report outlines a series of consumption interventions that could be taken by cities that relate to meat consumption, clothing purchases, personal transportation, air travel, and even electronics and appliances. Some of these consumption interventions include reducing car ownership, lowering meat consumption, reducing clothing purchases, and reducing air travel. And each one of these consumption interventions has a progressive target of by 2030 and an ambitious target by 2030. So examples of this, and Andy, if you click on that link right below where you highlighted the future of urban consumption and go down to page like 56 or something like that, you'll see all of these laid out in their two different targets: the progressive target by 2030 and the ambitious target by 2030. So examples of this include meat consumption. The progressive target says 16 kilograms of meat per person per year. The ambitious target for this part of the report is 0. Clothing purchases. The progressive target is 8 new clothing items per person per year. The ambitious target, 3 new items per year. I bought a pair of socks, and that does it for me until March of next year. Private vehicles, progressive target, 190 vehicles per 1,000 people. The ambitious target, 0. No private cars. Air travel, the progressive target, 1 short-haul return flight every 2 years per person. The ambitious target, 1 short-haul return flight for every person every 3 years. So, and before I get like fact-checked on this segment, there is a passage on page 68 of the report stating, quote, "This report does not advocate for the wholesale adoption of these more ambitious targets in C40 cities. Rather, they are included to provide a set of reference points that cities and other actors can reflect on when considering different emissions reductions alternatives and long-term urban visions." Doesn't that make you feel more comfortable about this idea that you're not going to be able to eat meat and buy clothes or air travel or own a car or all of that? The ambitious targets outlined in this report are just meant to be reference points for cities to reflect on when they have these long-term visions of their urban centers, or to put it another way, ambitious targets. I don't even know what that jargon is trying to say. Like, I don't believe the stuff that we're putting in this report. Like, what? And forgive me if I'm unconvinced that these ambitious targets outlined in this report aren't just plans for tomorrow, because we're already seeing bans on gas-powered cars. We're already seeing ultra-low emission zones in some cities around the world. We're already seeing new restrictions on gas stoves in cities. A few months ago, we talked about the mayor of New York City announcing a cap on the amount of meat and dairy served in schools and other city facilities. France is banning short-haul flights in the country. If you want to go somewhere in the area, take a train, right? So like we're already seeing a handful of these things that are outlined in this report happening, but to believe that it's just like, oh no, we're just putting it in there for reference points, like BS, get off me with that. So I don't buy it. Any of these ambitious plans and global organizations are incredibly well connected, incredibly influential, and oftentimes these things that they say and do go largely ignored. And they go largely ignored at our own peril. Like we've discussed numerous times on this podcast, the infrastructure of ESG and the Great Reset were constructed right under the noses of the public, despite the fact that advocates of these plans were openly discussing them in reports and conferences like Davos. That is why I'm starting Davos Watch, and every week I intend to shine a light on some element of the global elites, and I hope that you stay tuned in order to stay informed. Jim Lakely, what do you think?
Well, I think I'm pretty embarrassed by that Davos Watch video I tried to make for you that screwed up. So we got some good suggestions in the chat on how to improve it. So I'll try to do better next time. Or maybe I'll just leave it to Andy. He's better at that. But we got to get him doing that benefit video. And
of course. But room to grow.
Right. But this stuff is the way this is described is maddening. It's like you guys put it in writing. And they just keep gaslighting us over and over on this sorts of stuff. Because every time this stuff is exposed, it's published on websites, it's openly discussed at conferences, it's applauded when people are meeting the goals, and yet we're told not goals isn't the right word, targets is the word. Well, what's the difference between a goal and a target? Well, there's a very big difference. Well, can you explain it to me? Well, there's just a big difference. Oh, okay. It's like if you were, you give a card to somebody, like a woman, give a card and says, "I love you," and she goes, "Oh, you love me?" No, like what? It says right here, "I love you," right there. It's like, yes, but so that means you love me? No, no. It says it. It says I, and I meaning you, love me meaning me, or you meaning me, and so that means you love me. It's like, right. So you do love me. No, I just want you to feel loved. It goes round and round and round. It's complete insanity. And, I think they take a special glee from it because they certainly get a rise out of me with this kind of stuff. But, the only reason you put this kind of stuff in writing and distribute it through the WEF to the most influential and powerful elected officials in the world is because this is what you want the world to look like. And these people are being rewarded for moving toward making the world look like this. And so you're not fooling anybody. Well, they're not fooling us. I think they're fooling a lot of people, though.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. Justin, thoughts on this this plan? I mean, is it really just like, oh no, we're just outlining theoreticals here. We don't actually support this stuff. Like, I don't even understand what the fact check is trying to say. Like, don't believe the stuff in our own report. It's ridiculous.
Well, what I don't understand is what they're suggesting. So they're saying these are just, they're targets, but they're not targets in the sense that the government is actually doing these things. They're not going to impose these things on people. It's just, this is what we would like to see happen. But it's like, but the whole group is of policymakers. So it's not like these are regular people. It's not like they're sending it out to just regular people and they're like, okay, everybody, like, this is what we're hoping everyone will do. Like, we hope everyone will recycle their aluminum cans, so here, everyone, let's recycle. You're only sending it to the policymakers. Like, They're the only ones seeing it.
Right.
So how does it help to say, well, these are just voluntary targets, but then you only give them to people who would involuntarily impose them on other people? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, I don't know. It just seems very strange.
It's absolutely bizarre.
I looked up C40 .org to see who the C40 cities are. The C40 was one of the three sort of groups that put this report together. And C40 cities exist all over the world. There's a whole bunch of them. The ones in the United States,
I already listed them. Don't
you already
dare
listed
do it
them
again.
But you have the steering committees on here too.
Oh, like the people
was
that are
pretty
actually
surprising.
Yeah, they had like the mayor of Portland and the mayor of someone else is like a part of the steering committee for the North American chapter of this group. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's old. Phoenix is actually one of the steering committee members now, which is I think really strange. So it's not just blue. It's not just blue like areas like Houston, Austin, Miami. I mean, I think that was really shocking to me how many red state cities were involved in this as well. So at any rate, I think it's obviously something to worry about, but it's not surprising. We know that this is what the left wants to do, and we know this is what Davos wants. And so,
Chris, I'll give you final words on this topic or any other thing that we covered in the podcast. We're already 10 minutes long.
Yeah, so a couple things on this topic, because I think this is really important and really interesting. I'd say 5 to 10 years ago, I would have dismissed this outright as just ludicrous and absurd, and there's no way they can do it. But then I think, nowadays with ESG, with AI, with all the tools that they have, a digital currency, which they're rolling out, I think that this would be much easier for them to actually implement. Okay, so that does worry me, because I think that they have the technological infrastructure to actually achieve this, which is something that 20 years ago would have been a non-starter.
Yeah, you wouldn't have not been able to limit people's clothing purchases,
right,
without like a CBD.
Right, it would have been very, very difficult. What are you, the clothing police? I mean, give me a break. But the fashion police, I guess. Okay, but here's why I'm even more concerned, because Chicago and New York City and San Francisco and a lot of these big metropolitan areas in the United States are already going in this direction. I watched a report on New York City, and they are making it almost impossible to drive a car in that city these days. They've, they put curbside dining permanent, taking up 2 lanes, in those very congested streets. They make it almost impossible with congested, traffic pricing, and the cost to park your car in downtown Chicago these days, it's so outrageous. I think that they're slowly but surely trying to do this. I think they're trying to nudge people in the direction already by just making it cost prohibitive by, the cost of gasoline in Chicago is sky high too. So I think that they're already like moving in that direction, but this would, allow them to take it to a whole new level. And geez, I mean, you talk about like lockdowns, being a threat to liberty. This would be the end of liberty. So I hope that the American people outright reject this. However, there's, a side of me that thinks that it would be somewhat acceptable in a lot of these big cities, because they have been indoctrinated and brainwashed to such an incredible degree that climate change is an existential crisis, and that, meat consumption is a, horrible amplifier of, the climate change crisis. And just bringing it back full circle to the debate, when I saw, and Justin, mentioned this earlier, when I saw how they framed that question about climate change using, that student, it just, it was really disappointing, because I, thought that they would actually get into a discussion about it, but they sidestepped the discussion and said, it's happening. Are you going to do anything about it? And that, it's frustrating, because I think that the American people, by and large, do not buy into this. And the corporate media just is trying to, force them into it.
Right. So Davos Watch every week, shining a light on a new facet of all of this stuff that is not getting the attention it deserves or anything like that. And I spent a lot of time looking at this C40 thing last night when I was putting notes together for this, and the kind of the standards that these cities have to meet to be in this club. And it has specifically, like, these are the standards as outlined between the year 2022 and 2024, which makes it seem like after 2024, they're like more strict. And it just seems like this way of like keeping everybody in line. And if you want to be part of the club, you've got to keep jumping through these hoops and all of this stuff. And if there's one thing I know from all the work that we've done looking into World Economic Forum and Davos and the UN, and even now the C40 stuff and any other group like that, they know how to wield their influence, and they could be pretty impactful and pretty powerful when they're really trying, especially when they're moving in concert with each other. So this is a story that I thought was important to discuss in this week. And then every week, like I said, we're going to be talking about something else. So make sure to tune in every week for a new segment of Davos Watch. All right, gentlemen, last words, anything you want to get off your chest before we sign off for the week?
Yeah, why would red states allow their cities to go into bed with Davos to create detailed plans for how they're going to control every aspect of your entire life? Like, why would they allow that? I don't understand that at all. It makes no sense to me at all. A bunch of these cities that you just talked about are in Texas. There's at least one in Florida, one in Louisiana. These are all red states. Why are they allowing this? States' rights. You don't have to allow it. I don't know why they're doing that. So,
yeah. And if you don't think that organizations like the WEF have actual influence in America, then just think about Chicago. And this is the home of the Italian beef sandwich. This is some of the best restaurants in the world where steak is on the menu. If anybody even entertained the idea jokingly that you would ban meat consumption in the city of Chicago, you wouldn't just lose your election or be laughed out of town. They would probably assault you with a deadly weapon in this town. But there it is. And, if they did not have influence, a city like Chicago, or as you said, Justin, a city in a red state would say, no, please delist us from this on the website. This is not good for us. But instead, there they are, proudly touting it. So that's actual proof of what kind of influence WEF actually does have in America.
Yep, absolutely. They are squarely on my radar now. The C40 organization, they have a climate friendly cities summit that happens every year, and this past one they had people from the World Economic Forum and their smart cities delegation invited to do a speech on at that conference. So I'll be definitely keeping an eye on these people and seeing what they are up to. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of In the Tank podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this week. Join us every week for a new episode. It'd be greatly appreciated if you are listening to the show, probably on a Friday or later. Leave a review for us on iTunes. That'd be greatly appreciated. Also, you can join us a day earlier on Thursdays at noon Central Time, where we are live streaming this on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Rumble, where you can join the conversation, throw your comments and questions in the chat. Maybe we'll show your comment on the screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. Also, we have that super chat functionality enabled in case you want to support the show that way. And if you want to follow us, you can on Twitter at In the Tank Pod, or feel free to email us, send us suggestions for the show, questions, or anything like that by emailing us at inthethankpodcast@gmail.com. Jim Lakely, where can the fine people find you?
At J Lakely on Twitter, at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and always visit heartland.org.
Justin Haskins, same question.
At Justin T. Haskins on all the big social media channels. And check out the Justin Haskins channel on YouTube. We've been putting up some videos lately on the Biden economy and heat waves and all kinds of other important stuff. So check that out at Justin T. Haskins. I think you find that on YouTube. Just type in my name, you'll find it.
And Chris Talgo, what do you have to pitch today?
StopInSocialism.com. We have some new content up and some case studies on our upcoming book about socialism at a glance. So please go check it out.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you next week.